Hi, everyone. I'm going to start returning to the little book at the end of the New Testament called First John. I was teaching out of it through a good part of the fall, and I think some of the summer and the fall. And I guess we stopped for Christmas and the New Year, and there's been so much that's been going on in our lives with the pandemic and also the rioting and unrest in America. Um, and a lot going on in personal lives too. So it just seemed this week like a good time to come back to First John, and I made it through the first three chapters before. So today I want to look at chapter 4, 1 to 6, and to do this, I'm going to share my screen. I'm calling this talk Truth and Fiction. Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from God, because many false prophets have gone out into the world. By this you know the Spirit of God. Every spirit that confesses that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is from God, and every spirit that does not confess Jesus is not from God. This is the spirit of the Antichrist, of which you've heard that it is coming, and now it is already in the world. You are from God, little children, and you have overcome them, because greater is he who is in you than he who is in the world. They are from the world, therefore they speak as from the world, and the world listens to them. We are from God. He who knows God listens to us. He who is not from God doesn't listen to us. By this we know the spirit of truth and the spirit of error. Well, the historical situation is important. The early church wrestled to find itself. It wrestled against what it thought of as various heresies. And one of the early heresies was Docitism. And this was the idea that Jesus was more spirit than matter, that Jesus only appeared. Docetism comes from the Greek word for appearance. Jesus only appeared to be a human. Jesus only appeared to suffer on the cross. And this came from a kind of philosophy that really highlighted the importance of spirit over matter in such a way that how we live our lives was sometimes not considered that important. The writer of First John, as also the writer of John's Gospel, seems absolutely focused on defeating this particular idea, and so the test for whether or not something's true is whether or not the groups believe that Jesus has come in the flesh. Was he really here? Could they really touch him? Did he really die on the cross? That sort of thing. Today we have a different issue, and we need a different kind of basis for discernment. American evangelicalism in particular, although these tendencies are in Canada and they're around the world too, but American evangelicalism seems very different than historic Christianity, yet it claims to be the real thing. So how do you decide when you have very, very different groups of people that want to, or maybe used to call themselves Christians? It seems now, as Christianity is becoming such an unpopular term, many people that have loved Jesus and have lived for him faithfully don't want the name anymore, because what Christianity has come to mean in popular understanding is quite a negative thing. This was highlighted in the last year or two by a worship leader from the Midwest named Daniel Deitrich, who wrote Hymn for the 81%, highlighting the fact that 81% of even white evangelicals had voted for Donald Trump and continued to support him no matter what he did. And in this poignant song, Daniel Deitrich says, "You are better than this. You taught me better than this, and now I'm leaving. I'm leaving because I can't have anything to do with the kinds of things that you're doing, putting children in cages, separating them from their mothers, really living such a harsh reality, and so many people that claim to be Christians supporting this." Other recent examples of things that show the divide. There's a man in America, a pastor named Jeremiah Johnson, who's known for a prophetic ministry that he has. And he prophesied that Trump would win a second 4 years. And recently, this last week, he apologized because he said, clearly I was wrong. And and then he's let everyone know that what happened once he apologized is that he was barraged with multiple death threats, curses, cries of traitor, traitor to the Holy Spirit from people who identified as Christians. And there's something that seems a little off there. So he said in the midst of his tweets, the last thing that he said was, "I'm going back to the Sermon on the Mount." Franklin Graham, many times I've mentioned Franklin Graham. I've had a level of respect for his father and for some of the things I think that Franklin Graham has done over the years, but it just seems as though life has led us in such different directions. He's so famous, he has a lot of influence, but it seems that anytime I hear anything that he says, I just cringe. And in this one, recently, today I saw that he was lambasting the 10 Republicans who had voted for Trump's second impeachment. He said that they should be ashamed of themselves for their lack of loyalty and so quickly turning away from their wonderful president. And I think the exact opposite is the truth. These people really are putting themselves at great risk. I heard one freshman American senator, young man from Michigan, who said that he had spoken with some of his colleagues, and they said they would vote for impeachment for Donald Trump based on the insurrection that he motivated a week ago. They said they would do it, but they said it weeping, but they were afraid for their lives and the lives of their families. So there's a lot of bullying and a lot of intimidation going on, and to stand against that takes tremendous courage. To follow your heart and your conscience, to do that, that's not something that should be put down. I really like fiction. And I recently saw Salman Rushdie interviewed on television. He said, the purpose of a lie is to conceal the truth. The purpose of fiction is to reveal the truth. So I called this talk Truth and Fiction, but I should really call it Truth and Illusion, because I think of fiction as something, as Salman Rushdie says, something that can actually make us explore and understand truth better. That's the real calling of fiction. But illusion, it's as though a good part of the world has been captured by an illusion, and there's no easy way out. It's like a prison. People are living in a thought fog. So I wondered if there were any tests in our passage that would help us. And verse 2 seems important. By this you know the Spirit of God. Every spirit that confesses that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is from God. Well, I would say that our situation is different. The controversy that, we're not involved in exactly the same controversy as the author of this letter. We're involved in a different one. And so the basis of our discernment will be different too. But there may be a similarity. For John, it's all about whether or not the gospel and its depiction of Jesus is real. That's what he wants. He doesn't want something that's illusory. He doesn't want them to just imagine a spiritual force, a spiritual Jesus. He wants, it's all about reality. And did Jesus really live on the earth, or was it all an illusion? And Jesus said something very close to this too. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus said, beware of the false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they're ravenous wolves. You'll know them by their fruits. Grapes aren't gathered from thorn bushes, nor figs from thistles, are they? So every good tree bears good fruit, but the bad tree bears bad fruit. A good tree can't produce bad fruit, nor can a bad tree produce good fruit. Every tree that doesn't bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. So then you'll know them by their fruits. So what do we do when we find people that we love that are captured by an illusion, and they live within it, and they don't seem able to reason anymore? We could look at the main body of Jesus' teaching, but lots of different people are doing this and claiming that they understand it and that they're the true believers. I think the thing that will help us to figure it out is to look at the fruit, and maybe even John's question: what is real? So I was very influenced this year by Timothy Snyder, who teaches history at Yale. This small book on tyranny, 20 lessons from the 20th century. In it, he says, we are not smarter than the Italians or the Austrians or the Belgians or the French or any of the people that lost their freedom in the 20th century. And I saw him interviewed again on television, and the next morning I woke up and I reviewed this book. I'd read it about a year before, and suddenly it all became clear to me, the difference between a leader and an anti-leader. And that's what I'm going to share now, a little chart that I made to try to highlight the difference, because I think it shows what's real and what isn't, what's illusion. A leader has a sense of social responsibility. An anti-leader has a sense of entitlement. A leader is willing to be accountable. An anti-leader blames others. A leader is self-critical. An anti-leader admits no mistakes. A leader forgives. An anti-leader takes revenge. A leader, these are ideas from Timothy Snyder's book, is probably a patriot, focused on the future, calls others to their best self, and deals in reality about the problems of the present and the past. A nationalist is a much worse thing. A nationalist is focused on an imagined past, calls others to the worst possibilities, and deals in illusions of grandeur. A leader works responsibly in a crisis. An anti-leader will use a crisis as an opportunity to gain more power. A leader will keep focus on real issues. An anti-leader will cause distractions in order to cloud issues. A leader will speak with humility. An anti-leader will brag and draw attention to self. A leader will lift others. An anti-leader will advantage self. A leader will speak carefully in measured tones. An anti-leader will use extreme language to describe threats to the leader's self and to the illusory vision that he or she follows. And I put 12 things there, at 12 things above the line and 12 things below the line. And the hinge for me is the motivation. And I think that a leader is motivated by personal ambition, but also by justice and compassion, a deep longing for justice and compassion. And I think an anti-leader is motivated by personal ambition, but also a very deep fear of not being good enough, of being unworthy in some important way. A leader values honest reporting. An anti-leader limits freedom of the press. A leader allows history to be recorded accurately. An anti-leader manipulates stories in his or her own favor. A leader participates in civic duty, pays taxes, gets involved in nonprofits. An anti-leader avoids civic duty, tries not to pay taxes, misuses the funds in nonprofits. A leader has a broad sense of justice. An anti-leader has a small circle of favorites. A leader explains positions, values details. An anti-leader demands buy-in to positions with minimal explanation. A leader protects a society's institutions, whereas an anti-leader weakens them. A leader watches and suppresses extremist groups. An anti-leader empowers and emboldens them. A leader places experts in positions of authority. An anti-leader places loyalists in positions of authority. A leader is willing to speak unpopular truths. An anti-leader may very well make untruths popular. A leader fights caste systems and inhumane treatment of others. An anti-leader uses caste systems and inhumane treatments to personal advantage. A leader, not perfect, but will have a reputation for integrity and morality. An anti-leader may be quite imperfect, but will rely on a facade of integrity. A leader will be known for truth-telling. An anti-leader will be known to use lies. A friend of mine said that you might put at the top, under these conditions, democracy flourishes. Under these conditions, democracy is threatened. So to me, this just teasing these things apart just helped me to see what's the fruit and how real is it. And the reality of the situation is that people that I know and love have fallen into an illusion, and they are absolutely stuck there. And it's not. There's no value of fiction that I can see in it. Instead, it's just they're captured in an idolatrous. That's what the Pastor Jeremiah Johnson said, an idolatrous view of reality. It's they're locked in a new religious way of seeing, which doesn't allow them to reason or to think. And instead, every time that some new thing comes up, they just find a way to defend this person that they've turned into an idol. I'm sorry about it, and it's going to be a very difficult time until all of this is sorted out. But and I hope and pray for a peaceful transition of power in the next few days, because I think it's possible that we might see some real violence. But I'm hoping that that'll be restrained, and I'm hoping that real Christianity, whether it ever uses that name again, will focus more on the ethics of Jesus and the teaching of Jesus in passages like the Sermon on the Mount, than it will on crazy prophetic notions. And I think we've seen a bit too much of that this year. So, okay, that's it for me. Hope you have a great week. And as we're trying to figure out our way forward, I hope that you use the test of reality. Bye now.